Pandemic is rolling right off our tongues. The cloth that keeps dripping until it's been wrung.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to wherever you might be watching this, Facebook, Instagram, if you're watching the future, watching from the past. This is the Old Capitol Books featured performer interview. My name is Tommy Pieper. I am part of the Close to Home Collective. This week, you will be enjoying the poetry of Kraig Bellows. So we're going to sit down with him and interview him for a little bit. Kraig, first question. I'm not doing any softballs here. How are you?
I'm good. I'm as good as can be in the current moment. Um, I'm out of the hustle and bustle of the city, so I'm a lot happier. But yeah, I'm just hoping that one day I can go to somewhere other than the grocery store.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how has this whole situation affected your work or affected your relationship to your process? How is your art being informed by everything going on right
Um, it's interesting because I have a newborn right now. So that really has affected my process more than anything, in that in the couple weeks, of whatever lockdown we're experiencing prior to the baby being born, I was like, writing a lot, this, that, doing a lot of that kind of stuff. And when I moved, I had to move without a lot of my supplies. So that kind of took a hit. And honestly, I've just been experiencing this kind of like apathy. I don't know. I kind of thought staying home all the time. I'm an educator, so, I'm able to just, I'm not necessarily unemployed, but I'm just not going to work. And I thought that would mean I made more, but really I've just been watching a lot of Gilmore
now?
Girls. And I've written one poem since my daughter was born on April 16th, sorry, the day after tax day. But yeah, we're just feeling it out, and we're in a new home. And yeah, honestly, I think that this has mostly dampened my creative outlook, the lockdown, which I didn't necessarily think it would. I thought that I would like watercolor and write and do all of these things. And I mean, and now I'm just changing diapers, so uh that's a little bit different than just the lockdown. That's a more rewarding reason to not be making art.
Sure. Diapers, Gilmore Girl.
Yeah, I mean, mostly at the same time, a lot of it. So I'm almost done with my second viewing of the Gilmore Girls. I like really bad TV. I read the news all the time. I read really good books, but I can't watch good visual media. I have to watch trash.
Mm. I definitely I can identify with that. So you mentioned maybe the work has slowed down a little bit, and so in that case, I want to ask you slash sort of challenge you in a way that I do with some of our guests. Can you compose maybe one or two lines about Gilmore Girls?
About the Gilmore Girls.
You're not married to whatever you put out there. Just a quick spontaneous little exercise.
Nobody's ass looks good in khakis.
Look at that. Look at that. See? It's easier than you might think. That's a newsflash and a line of poetry, I would say. Yeah. People heed the advice.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So we've been brought together more or less by Old Capitol Books here, and I know you mentioned off mic, as they say, that you spent time in Monterey. Can you kind of talk about your experience with Old Capitol Books and what it's meant to you, and maybe your relationship with the area?
Yeah, well, in the fall of 2011, I moved to the Ord. I was a student at CSUMB. I spent 3 years there and dropped out. And I was a student in the HCOM department, Humanities and Communications, and then in the Service Learning Institute. And kind of through that, I don't even really know what weird internet hole I went down, but I did a lot of Facebook IMing with Stephanie while she was in Bulgaria, I think. I swear she was in Bulgaria doing like communist organizing or something like that. I'm not quite sure because it was a long time ago. But yeah, and then my buddy Brian always worked at Old Capitol. We had a Fem Theories class together and then became fast friends. And, Stephanie eventually acquired the bookstore. And since then, I've periodically gone, to poetry readings. I love that bookstore space. I'm sad to hear that they're not doing so well given the, weird lockdown that we're currently within. It was always, even before I knew anyone that worked there, I'd go downtown to the East Village open mic, and there'd always, the bookstore was there. And so I just think it's very, very important to have a used bookstore, especially in kind of a bustling downtown area, even if people are just going there to buy their copy of Cannery Row while they're on vacation. It's still important. And I just always remember flipping through they had a really, at least before, when I was first living there, they had the hilariously large collection of Scientology books, which are always a hoot to go through. And then, esoterica, metaphysical, critical theory, that book, and whenever I've gone, and whenever people, because people know, you've lived somewhere and they're like, oh, what should I do? I'm like, oh, go to the bookstore on the plaza. Like, it's great, So it's always drawn me back. I still, obviously have folks that live there. And though I haven't lived there in, God, 5 years now. Yeah, I haven't lived in Monterey for 5 years. I still go back 3 or 4 times. Now I live in New Mexico, so my amount of times visiting the area, but I always make a trip to Old Capitol, and I still get invited to read poetry at their events.
Cool.
So it's just been a real resource.
Case in point, this Friday.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I used to read a lot of poetry, and then I got into education and teaching art, and so there was just less room for me to go out, get wasted, and yell. But Old Capitol has continued to be there for me to yell in front of groups of people.
So you brought up Scientology, which is a topic I'm very passionate about.
Really?
I mean, not I'm not a Scientologist, but
okay.
I find it like most people. I think I find it very fascinating. So L. Ron Hubbard, I think is according to the Guinness Book or whoever keeps track of these things, the most prolific author of all time.
No, their shelf at the bookstore was always, someone must have died in the area, or someone's kid was cleaning out their house and was like, we're getting rid of all, but it's so many books. And one time I went to the church in Portland because I was traveling, and we went in, and they just believe all sorts of weird things. It's mostly a detox regimen. And then it's a pyramid scheme.
across
And
the
like
board,
most most things, they like get in like street addicts who are looking for detox, right? Because like then one time I was waiting in the bus station in Portland, and there were all of these like kind of fringy but like recovering looking kind of folks handing out popcorn. And I was like, who are these people handing out popcorn? And someone who was from there was like, oh, those are like the Scientology recruits.
to be
Like,
fair,
you know,
that's
lo and behold, there were like pamphlets in the bags of popcorn.
to be fair, fringy, like halfway recovered people handing out popcorn is me at the OCO on any given day.
Exactly.
So my
my experience too.
my question to you is this: is that L. Ron Hubbard, the Scientologist, they still keep a room for him at each Scientology center and each of their bases. And in this room, they keep like to his specification a pair of slippers, I think, and also a Louis L'Amour book. I forget which novel it is, but it's the one he was reading when he, well, they don't say died. I think it's when his spirit left his vessel or some such shit.
Yeah,
And they have the bookmark placed to the exact spot he was at when he croaked. So my question to you is this: say you were given the same arrangement, and whenever the time may be that you shuffle off this mortal coil, what book would you want at all the Kraig Bellows bases around the world?
I have it up here.
Oh wow!
Down. No, it wasn't.
This took you no time to come up with the answer. This is great.
It's on my mantle. The only book. It's called Living for Change.
Mm.
And it's by Grace Lee Boggs. And for all of you who are trying to rob my house, it's where I keep my social security card and my birth certificate and my car title.
Could you just hold this social security card up?
Yeah, it's right there. But yeah, it's really, I don't know if you know who Grace Lee Boggs is, but she was an incredible philosopher, writer, organizer that died. She was born in 1915 and she died in 2015 at 100. And she lived in Detroit for 70 years and just organized, really. Like, went to Bryn Mawr in her undergrad and became a Hegelian, which I don't really like Hegel, but I like her. And she did nothing but organize basically auto workers and transition through different movements for social change throughout the 20th and early 21st century. And at some point, moved to Detroit because she wanted to be an auto worker. And then did union organizing and went through a union organizing period, the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, into the women's movement, into the environmental movements of the late 20th and early 21st century.
She is kind of like almost the Forrest Gump of activism and organizing.
Yeah, I mean, this is really an incredible book. It's her memoir. She wrote other books too. Her husband was a man named Jimmy Boggs. He was a Black gentleman, and they both became auto workers to organize. And then eventually some like wealthy friends of theirs were like, oh, you guys don't have to work anymore, and just kind of like supported them in being organizers in Detroit. And they still have their house in Detroit as, you know, sort of a museum space. But yeah, really, you know, went through and like really examines the way that neoliberal capitalism abandoned the American worker right, because she was there through, you know, the 50s where like American manufacturing, especially in Motor City, was just like booming. We were just making cars to the point, you know, through the 70s and the Reagan era in the 80s, where all of the factories left. And Detroit's this wasteland, right, of just empty houses where like kids burn down houses because there's nothing else to do. There's like an epidemic in Detroit of young people just burning down empty houses for fun because there's just so many empty houses. You know, because you're experiencing a population decline of, so I mean, and you know, what's right next door but Flint. So yeah, she just stuck around Detroit forever and saw the rise and fall of American capitalism and really encapsulates it quite well in her work, including Living for Change, which would be the book that's in every single one of my cultish headquarters, along with a pair of slippers.
Man, Kraig, that was amazing. That was maybe the best sales pitch for a book I've ever heard. And I'm gonna, if anyone ever asks me the same question, I'm gonna just copy you.
Chill.
Or at least try to muster the same eloquent enthusiasm for whatever my pick is. So yeah, this Friday, do you want to say a word or two about what you are planning on bringing to the event, or would you like to keep it a mystery?
I'll read, you know, my latest work. I've written one thing since my daughter was born. I will certainly read that. A lot of what I've written over the last year was kind of anticipation of being a parent, right, in you know, very uncertain times. And you know, there's another writer that I really admire and love named Lydia Yuknovich, who yeah, I've met a number of times. She did CSUMB's Summer Arts like probably 5 years, maybe 6 years, 8. I don't even know how many years ago now. More than 5, less than 10. And, you know, she recently put out a book called Verge. And when I was still living in the Bay Area, I went to see her read in Oakland. And it was just like the most like NPR people in the world asking these like self-aggrandizing questions, you know, that were just like really them expounding their literary prowess. And like this lady, I mean, you read her works, like she's definitely like a literary icon, but at the same time she was like a heroin junkie at one point. Like you just kind of see her face and you're just like, you know, you guys aren't impressing this woman with this like jargon or whatever. But then there was this one kid, you know, and I'm like 27 now, so I can say kid when they're like 18, I think, who was like, what makes you so brave? Give me 1 second.
Sure.
No, I should.
What makes you so brave?
Yeah, what makes you so brave? And she was saying, she responded with something about basically that she wasn't brave, and in like a very like respectful way, kind of like, you know, shoved off this kid's question, but then was kind of like, what if it didn't have to be so scary? What if, I mean, even if it's scary, what if, you know, the fact that we're living right now is us perhaps parting the seas so that those behind us have a path to walk through despite it seeming so so grim right now that like we could just collapse into depression and anxiety and hopelessness, or we could like hold out our arms and like hold space for people. And so like despite the crippling, the completely insurmountable odds that we're facing right now, perhaps we could allow some space for those that are coming. People, there's people being born all the time. There's people coming into consciousness right now. So like I think that there's like a great deal of like apathy and thinking that you need to be courageous when really all you need to do is just stand up. And so that's sort of what I'm exploring right now, and what I can share with you. So I can't guarantee or promise that it's going to be anything pleasant, but what I'm trying to do right now is just give people space. However, and come as you are, like some Christian bullshit. Come as you are,
Well, that's a beautiful sentiment. Maybe not the Christian bullshit one, but the quote from the author and your sort of distillation of it. I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me, and from Close to Home Collective here in Monterey, all the way to you in New Mexico. Thank you so much, and we will see you on Friday.
Yeah, we'll see you. All right.